What you see here are the remains of a smoke detector that I literally ripped off the ceiling. In this video it's going to be another rant video. I know you're tired of my rant videos, but just watch it. This is a follow-up video to what you have seen in the chemoelectronics fluorescent lamp. This is a follow-up video what you have seen in the chemoelectronics fluorescent lamp driver. Okay, so the German government, and it's divided in various parts. We also have the, if you want to call it like that, state force. I mean, the state forces you in Bavaria at the change from 2007 to 2018. You will be forced by law to install a smoke detector in your sleeping room, in the room where I'm sleeping. In the room where I'm sleeping, I'm also using my soldering stuff, I'm using my Dremel tool, and I make my electronic stuff. You may post, why don't you change your room? Well, it's just not a point that I will do. I've had a smoke detector being installed in my room. Nothing wrong there, it worked fine for the first week. I was doing as I did, I was soldering stuff, I was using my Dremel tool to make circuit boards for transmitters, and what then happened, it was 5 o'clock in the morning, and beep 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 beep. I just woke up, like barely getting a heart attack, and so, is it burning in my room? No, nothing. This thing was beeping, even there was no fire. Okay, I pushed the button, it was quiet, and slept and continued sleeping. Next day, or a few days later, I don't remember it, it's quite a long time ago. A few days later, what happened was, I was sitting in my room, writing an email. I was very concentrated what I'm going to write, and suddenly, just without any reason, beep, 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 and trust me, these things are so loud, they will make you jump, trust me. I have no idea how to make that amount of noise from a 9-volt battery, but they do. So, this was the second time, and we had these fire detectors or smoke detectors everywhere in the house, and the only one that was messing up and making trouble was the one in my room. Okay, so I gave it a last chance. We changed the smoke detector, we took it out and placed in another one, and it worked for 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, at 3 o'clock in the morning, beep, 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 and that was enough. I ripped it off the ceiling, threw it out and said, no smoke detector in my room. And now by 2018 they force you and give you fees if you don't install one. They force you to install a smoke detector in your room. And how these things work, these were cheap ones, like $3 or so, for one smoke detector, including the battery. And how they work is they have like a LED or an infrared LED and a phototransistor or photodiode inside in a chamber. And what it does, the circuit, like every minute or so, it gives a short pulse of to the LED, which makes a short pulse of light going into the chamber and is received by this phototransistor or photodiode. It will then calculate, because they have some kind of intelligence, it will then calculate if there is fire or not. What do you mean with intelligence? Well, they go ahead and they know after a while there will be dust in the chamber, and this is how they slowly, over time, make the phototransistor less sensitive. What happened in my case, I was soldering, and the interesting thing is, if you have a smoke detector and you read the manual, they say where not to install these smoke detectors. First point, do not install the smoke detector in rooms where you are soldering. Well, there is a problem, obviously. I am soldering in my room, and I must have a smoke detector. So, problem. Okay, so you can buy one for $3 and you can say, okay, screw it, I will invest $40 for one smoke detector. And you can buy one, and still, although it's $40, it only has a diode and a phototransistor. It will have a microprocessor and will have more features and will be more intelligent, but still it's based on a diode and a phototransistor. And if I'm soldering, and if I'm using these Dremel tools and stuff, the dust will get into the smoke detector. And after a while, let's say it's 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 1 month, 4 weeks is 1 month, 2 months, and somewhere there will be these fake alarms again. And trust me, it's like psychological terror. You're going to bed and you're afraid of sleeping in because you know when they go off, it's like you jump out of the bed, it's like you're nearly getting a heart attack. So, there are smoke detectors that are working and would be fine for me. They are working with a slightly radioactive material, and they somehow seem to know or react only to the gas that is being generated if it's burning in your room. But the problem is, of course, even if you would like invest $100, you can't buy them as private person because you aren't permitted to buy them because of the radioactive material. I think we have some of these on the work where is some welding going on, and you could definitely forget install a normal smoke detector there. It would be like continuous alarm after a week or so. So I think we have them there. So why are they allowed in an official place but not allowed in my room? Next thing is, why do we even need a smoke detector? Well, people sleep in with a cigarette in the bed starts burning. People forget to turn off or to erase the fire from the candle, room starts burning. Stuff like that can happen. People have a bad electrical installation and it can start burning. But back in the 90s, you would have a satellite receiver, I've had one, from Katrine. Or many other satellite receivers work the same way. You had a main switch, which physically disconnected the thing from the mains. It disconnected in, and if you switched off the device, it was like as if you would pull the plug. So how should this one catch fire? Look what they've done today. Now these days, you have your television, satellite receiver, computer, always 24 hours, 365 days a year. You always have it connected to the mains. There is not only a diode, there's a more complex circuit, but this is to simplify it. You have a diode, a capacitor, a switching transistor and some electronics, a transformer, blah, 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 and lots of stuff. And then you have your main circuit board. And then you have your so-called on-off switch, which is a fake switch, because if you switch off the device, it will definitely draw way less current than before because it's off. But still, the power supply is always on, because how should the circuit give a signal to the power supply if this sensing circuit, whether you turn it on or off, if this is not supplied with voltage, how should this work? And this is why this device is always on. And see, we have a diode here. I've read somewhere, I haven't had this happen to me and I hope it never happens, but I've read somewhere that it can happen that after years and years and years and years of usage, the diode slightly becomes a little bit more conductive in the other direction and becomes more conductive and somewhere. This is one part that eventually could start a fire, because it could like go down to a couple of hundred ohms, it will get very hot, then this will make it even worse, it will get even hotter, and then you have your fire. How often have I read in forums, my TV just randomly started with fire? I mean, the problem is, why don't you just pull the plug? I once a while ago, I had a satellite receiver from a pay TV. So it's like a television, additional television stations where you pay money for, but then you get like exclusive movies and exclusive series which are earlier released than in normal television. I've had one of these receivers, what's called D-Box, and this receiver was typically with on-off. You turned it off, it was standing in the shelf, being turned off, and you could touch the case, and the case was like hot. And then I say, okay, I pull the plug, and then you get punished. It was like 20:14 or 20 or 20.12, 3 minutes left for the movie to start. I plugged it in and turned it on. If you do this with the old school satellite receiver, the analog one, you plug it in, instantaneously, or let's say 1 second later, you have the picture and you can use it. Doing that with the pay TV receiver was, you plug it in, turn on your television, or I turned on my television, and what happened there was say, welcome to the name of the television company, your receiver is being started. Dum, da, dum, da, dum. I had to wait freaking 2 minutes or so until my receiver was started. It's a receiver. Is it a computer or receiver? Anyway, I had to wait 2 minutes or so until my receiver was started, and I finally could watch TV. So you just say, oh, I just keep it plugged in. That's one thing. That causes a fire in your room. The next thing is, hey, did you see the new cordless drill? It's so powerful with the new improved lithium battery. This is something they gave you. They gave you a camera. This one is really old, trust me. With lithium battery. You can't just take a normal battery and plug it in, you only can build in a lithium battery. There's no option for building in normal AA batteries, and this is why I have the camera, which is so hated by much, because the sound is like shh, okay, you can slightly hear my voice, shh. This is the cheap camera, but look, it uses normal batteries. And that's what I like, it uses normal batteries. They force you to get this lithium battery. You don't want it, but you just get it, because you either can buy the product with lithium ion battery or you cannot buy it. So what's the point with these batteries? The point is, if they are in the device and they are charged below a certain voltage, there's nothing wrong. But if you then take them and charge them up again, what can happen is, there are, let's say, a couple of layers. So this one would be the plus layer and this one would be the minus layer. And there's of course the chemistry in between, and there is like a very small foil in between these two layers. And if you charge them, when they are deeply charged, if they are going below a certain voltage and you then charge them, what can happen is that there are so-called dendrites or crystals growing inside the battery. They are penetrating the foil a little bit, which might not do anything. You charge it up, you took it out, it was laying around 1 year, you charge it up, throw it in your camera, make your photos and videos, and everything's fine. But suddenly, 4 or 5 days later, uh-oh, smoke detector, beep, 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 your camera is on fire. Why is it on fire? Well, this dendrite crystal was still growing, and then it got through this small foil and made a short circuit between plus and minus. Since in these lithium batteries there is lots of energy stored, you get instantaneously lots of heat, and what you then have, see lots of YouTube videos, fire, fire and fire. So it's not like I can say, hey, this is basically a good camera, I like it, I can make good pictures with it, it's quite handy, but I want to power it with normal batteries. No, they force you to use these lithium-ion batteries. And that was what we were not having in the 90s. In the 90s we were having nickel-cadmium batteries or nickel metal hydride batteries. And if you short them, I've shorted a couple of them, of course not wanting, what happens is, for example, I once had a CB radio and one of the springs from the battery holder was broken off. And what I did, I mean I was young, I used some tin foil, made a ball of the tin foil, pushed it in and somehow pushed the battery in. The walkie-talkie obviously was working, and then I went from outside, I went in the room, said to my parents, was watching TV with them and laid my walkie-talkie on the table. And we were watching TV and suddenly it started from the walkie-talkie. And then I was scared. I took out the batteries and one battery was so hot I couldn't even touch it anymore because it was shorted. But hey, it was making and that was all it did and no fire, as you would see with the lithium battery. And this is why you have these things. Because I have the battery here, I had it and it was deeply discharged. I was measuring on the pins and it was putting out 0 volts because there is some protection electronic of course, but it was putting out 0 volts. But I bet if I would have took that battery and put it back in the charger, it would just have charged it and pretending nothing happened. And this is why it's so dangerous. And this, trust me, I don't have a smoke detector, but I often get, like, I go to bed, I'm basically tired, but I'm looking forward to the next day because I'm having a good game or I'm having a big project which I'm working on, and I'm happy about my life. But then suddenly, like, beep, suddenly these thoughts come up. Oh, tonight one of your batteries could be burning, or the switch more power supply could be burning. And this is like, and then getting more thoughts about it, I'm thinking more about it, and I'm getting more awake, and it's hard to sleep in again, and on the next day I'm really dizzy, and I was fighting to sleep. Trust me, I would like to have a smoke detector here to sleep better, but have a smoke detector, stop working on a project, or do not have a smoke detector, keep working on a project, but be afraid of sleeping in and be, if you want to call it like that, gangster, because you aren't having installed the smoke detector because they want you, they force you with a law, and they force you to do this. So why I'm so mad is because I'm not, compared to a normal worker, I do have extremely much spare time. But as I said, I do have problems, I do have some psychological problems, which makes it hard for me to do stuff. And I need like 36 videos or so to get done, to skip the place from 2018 to late 2020 or whatever, 2021, when my brother eventually will move out and I get his room. And then I'll have a sleeping room with a smoke detector and I can use this room again for electronic projects. I mean, I will be making electronic projects and eventually I will find a way to solder. But currently this is how it looks. So please understand why I was that pissed in that chemo electronic video. Okay, so far from me.